Hey everyone. So yesterday was, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly a party in crypto land, was it? We saw XRP take a pretty nasty tumble down to $2.39. And even Bitcoin, our beloved king of crypto, dropped all the way down to around $106,000. Ouch. Now, I know what you're thinking right now. You're looking at today's prices. XRP sitting at $2.52. Bitcoin flirting with that $110,000 mark. And you're wondering, is this it? Are we out of the woods? Can I finally stop stress eating and checking my portfolio every 5 minutes? Well, hold your horses there, friend. I hate to be the bearer of potentially bad news, but we might not be completely in the clear just yet. Here's the thing, and I'm talking about multiple analysts I trust and follow religiously. They're all saying the same thing. There's a very real possibility that we could see prices drop even further. And I'm not talking about some random crypto Twitter accounts here. I'm talking about some of the absolute best minds in this space. One analyst in particular, someone I genuinely believe is among the top tier in the entire crypto world, is warning that XRP could potentially drop as low as $1. Yeah, you heard that right. $1. But before you start panic selling everything and hiding under your blankets, let me share the silver lining here. And this is huge. Not a single one of these analysts, literally zero, believes that if this happens, it means we're entering a bear market. None of them think this is the end of the road where you pack up your bags and call it quits on crypto forever. Actually, it's quite the opposite. Every single one of them still believes we're in what I like to call number go up mode when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture. What does this mean for you? Well, they're still expecting Bitcoin to go on that final parabolic run we've all been waiting for. You know, that crazy rocket ship moment where it hits a brand new all-time high. And then, that's when the magic happens. Profits start flowing out of Bitcoin and rotating into altcoins. We get that proper alt season that everyone's been dreaming about. And here's the kicker. XRP is positioned to be one of the biggest winners, possibly the biggest winner among the top 100 coins by market cap. We're talking about face-melting gains for the first time in almost a decade, people. So please, don't get discouraged. I know it's tough watching those red numbers, but this could be setting us up for something absolutely incredible. Let me share something really interesting with you. There's this guy, Ryan Dietrich. He's the chief market strategist at Carson Group. Now, I'll be honest, I've only been following him for a couple of months, but man, this guy consistently drops absolute fire content on X. I'm talking pure historical data gold. And you know what they say, history doesn't repeat, but it sure does rhyme. So here's what caught my attention. Ryan posted about how we're about to enter the historically best months for the stock market. Now, you might be thinking, why should I care about the stock market when we're talking crypto? Great question. Here's the thing. Crypto follows the stock market pretty closely. When stocks do well, crypto usually follows suit. So get this. Ryan analyzed every 6-month period going back to 1950. And guess what he found? The period from November through April is historically the absolute best 6-month stretch for the S&P 500. How good are we talking? On average, the S&P 500 gains 7.1% during this period. That's the highest average gain of any 6-month period throughout the entire year. But wait, it gets better. What are the odds of actually making money during this period? Well, going back to 1950, the market was higher 77% of the time. That's nearly 4 out of every 5 times. Now, if the stock market performs as historically expected, what do you think happens to crypto? That's right, it's probably going to follow along for the ride. This actually ties in perfectly with something called the lengthening cycle theory that guys like Raoul Pell, Julian Biddle, and TechDev have been talking about. They've been making some compelling arguments about business cycles and global liquidity. I won't dive too deep into the weeds here, but the timing seems to be lining up beautifully. Speaking of TechDev, I've actually got a fascinating post from him that perfectly illustrates what we're talking about. He says, and I love this quote, "The longest runway continues. Takeoff has yet to begin, but it's close." Now, what's he showing us here? He's got this incredible Bitcoin chart going all the way back to 2013. And underneath it, he's mapped out the business cycle over that exact same time frame. This is where it gets really interesting, folks. See those green dots on the chart? Each one marks the end of what he calls a macro bottoming phase. Basically, the moment when global liquidity starts flowing back into the markets. And here's the kicker. Historically, this is exactly when Bitcoin starts making its biggest, most explosive moves. We saw this pattern play out perfectly in 2016 and again in 2020. And guess what? We just printed another green dot. What TechDev is telling us is that we're essentially at the end of this long accumulation phase. Think of it like a rocket that's been fueling up for months. We're almost ready for liftoff, but we haven't actually taken off yet. And here's what's really exciting. The most explosive part of the cycle. We're talking about that final 10%, where alt season happens and we see the biggest, most insane moves. That hasn't even started yet. The most fun part is still ahead of us. If history continues to rhyme the way it usually does, this setup looks remarkably similar to the moments right before previous major bull runs, like eerily similar. So, according to the signal, yeah, the real fireworks show is
absolutely still coming. And honestly, it just makes sense when you think about it. Now, I don't want to go too deep into the technical stuff here, because we'd be here all day. But there are specific reasons why this business cycle is running a bit differently. It has to do with debt refinancing cycles. And according to Raoul, TechDev, and Julian Biddle, we're actually transitioning from the traditional 4-year crypto cycle to a 5-year cycle. The underlying mechanism that used to trigger these cycles every 4 years has shifted to about 5 years on average. But let me share something else that caught my attention. There's this post from Swissblock. They're an on-chain analytics firm, and they really know their stuff when it comes to reading Bitcoin's blockchain data. Here's what they're saying. When short-term holders capitulate, local bottoms are built. Yesterday saw more Bitcoin in loss sent to exchanges than during the deleverage event. A clear stress flare, but not yet full capitulation. In plain English, we're seeing some panic selling, but we haven't hit that complete throw in the towel moment yet. And then they drop this bombshell. From here, either Bitcoin reclaims $113,400 or short-term holders break completely, like in March or late July. There's no middle ground. So Swissblock is basically saying we're at a crossroads here. Bitcoin either bounces back strong, or we could see that deeper drop that other analysts have been warning about. And you know what? I'm seeing this same message echoed by tons of analysts I follow and trust. The level of conviction from these experts, it's honestly like flipping a coin right now. And that's actually okay. Sometimes that is the right answer. Sometimes the data and charts don't give us crystal clear direction. And the honest response is, here's what might happen, but we need to be prepared for multiple scenarios. At other times, you'll see these same analysts have much stronger conviction. It really just depends on what the data is telling them. And that's perfectly reasonable. That's how good analysis should work. Now, speaking of data, let me share something really interesting from Glassnode, another fantastic on-chain analytics firm that I trust completely. They just dropped some fascinating insights about XRP specifically. So get this, since early August, XRP has taken quite the tumble. We're talking a drop from $3.30 all the way down to $2.40. That's a pretty painful 27% decline, and I know many of you felt that one. But here's where it gets really interesting. During this exact same period, long-term holders, and I'm talking about people who accumulated XRP before November 2024, they ramped up their spending by a massive 580%. We're talking about a jump from $30 million a day to $260 million a day. Now, Glassnode is calling these seasoned traders, but let's be honest here. We're really just talking about people who have been holding XRP for
longer than 5 seconds. They don't have to be professional traders or anything fancy like that. What you're seeing on this chart is long-term XRP holders. Some of these folks bought way before the major run-up we just had, and they're finally taking profits. And honestly, good for them. Here's the thing though, when people who have been sitting on XRP for literally years decide to sell into strength like this, it usually signals that we've hit a temporary top in that particular move. That flood of supply hitting the market? Yeah, it absolutely puts pressure on the price, which is exactly what we saw as XRP pulled back to the mid-$2 range. But here's the key question. Is this healthy long-term? Absolutely 100% yes. Short-term? Well, this is what we call distribution, or in simpler terms, selling. These long-term holders are basically locking in their gains and passing those coins over to newer people who are just getting into XRP before the next big leg up. And trust me, I absolutely believe that next leg is coming. Look, this is completely normal in a bull run. No asset, and I mean no asset, goes up in a straight line forever. That's just not how markets work. So let me be crystal clear here. This does not mean the bull market is over. Not even close. And here's where it gets really fascinating. Despite all this selling pressure from long-term holders, and yes, this is just hard data, not opinion, we're seeing something incredible happening at the exact same time. I actually made a video about this a couple of days ago, but there are record numbers of people, businesses, and institutions removing XRP from exchanges. Like record-breaking numbers. Now, think about this for a second. Why would someone go through the hassle of removing XRP from an exchange? Well, it's pretty simple, really. If you're planning to sell anytime soon, you'd just leave it on the exchange for convenience, right? When people remove crypto from exchanges, it's a strong signal that they have zero intention of selling anytime soon. I mean, why would you go through all the trouble of withdrawing it, only to deposit it right back to sell? That makes no sense. So what does this tell us? It's an incredibly bullish indicator that there are tons of people with serious conviction who are basically saying, I'm not selling this stuff. Think about what's happening here. We've already seen some degree of capitulation from the long-term holders taking profits, but at the same time, we've got record numbers of people with strong conviction pulling their XRP off exchanges. Could we go lower in the short term? Absolutely. It's possible. But if it happens, it's probably going to be driven more by overall market conditions and macro factors, rather than anything specific to XRP itself. That's the consistent message I keep seeing from analysts across the board. Now, let me share some thoughts from one of the absolute best analysts in this space. And I'm talking
about chart analyst Credible Crypto. This guy has 480,000 followers on X, and for good reason. He just shared an XRP price chart that's getting a lot of attention. Here's what he's saying. Like CRV, I don't expect XRP to move all the way back to $1.17, where we whipped on October 10th. But if Bitcoin sees a deeper pullback below $100,000, then we would expect further downside across the board. And for XRP specifically, he's warning that could mean a move back down to around $1.70, or even into that demand zone we saw back in April at $1.60. Folks, let me be clear. He's not making a straight-up prediction here, but he is acknowledging that it's possible we could see XRP drop by almost a full dollar from current levels. That's a pretty significant potential decline. But here's the part that really matters. Check out what else he says. At the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact that we are still moving up and down between a higher time frame range, digesting the 500% move up from 50 cents that we had earlier.
He's talking about that incredible run we had starting right after the election in November. And then he drops this gem. In other words, these zones are really only relevant for those looking to buy the dip. If you're spot and chill and loaded up, you just need to tune out the noise until the dip is over. And you know what? That's exactly my approach. I'm spot and chill, as he puts it. This is why I respect Credible Crypto so much. He's been in this space for the better part of a decade, and he understands that when these scary moments happen, it's not the end of the world. He firmly believes we're still in a bull market, and bull markets absolutely do have pullbacks, sometimes big ones. The key thing is, he doesn't think we've peaked yet. He keeps explaining why, and honestly, I'm inclined to agree. While I can't know for sure, I think we're way more likely to move higher and hit much higher peaks before this market finally runs out of steam and enters a bear market. I just don't pretend to know exactly when that'll happen or how high we'll go first. Look, if history continues to rhyme with itself, it makes perfect sense to believe we're going higher. Could this time be different? Sure, that's always possible, but that's almost never actually the case. Sometimes the improbable does happen, but I'm just not counting on it. Let me share a couple more recent analyst perspectives to give you the full picture. Chart analyst Ali Martinez just posted this morning that XRP could find support at $2. So there's another expert warning that yeah, we could see further downside. And then there's chart analyst Tara, who shared some really interesting wave analysis just this morning at 6:39 a.m. She's looking at what she calls a Wave 2 correction on XRP and expecting a small retrace to the 0.5 level at $2.44, followed by Wave C targeting the 618 retrace at $2.57. But here's the kicker. She's warning that she believes a big drop is coming after that level is reached. So just be careful on this retrace up. And you know what? Her analysis was pretty spot on. At the time she posted this, XRP was trading at $2.49. According to Live CoinWatch, we actually hit a 24-hour high of $2.55, incredibly close to her $2.57 target, before falling back slightly. I mean, we're sitting at $2.54 right now, which is practically right at that high she predicted. From her perspective, it's actually pretty likely that we're going to see some sort of pullback from here. We'll see if she ends up being correct on that call. But here's what's really interesting to me. It's yet another analyst joining what I'm starting to call the choir of people acknowledging we could go lower first. Do you remember that video I made several days ago? I dedicated almost the entire thing to perspectives from two chart analysts, including Bobby A. I went through his full explanation of why he believed XRP looked bearish in the short term. Well, guess what? I've been seeing more and more analysts in recent days basically piling on and starting to agree. It's looking more and more like Bobby might have just been one of the first to spot this pattern. And that's exactly why it bothers me when people give him crap about his analysis. This guy has been in our XRP community for years. He's been one of the biggest XRP bulls out there. He's not posting bearish takes to spread fear just for the fun of it. He's not some troll trying to mess with people. He's a genuine XRP community member, expressing his honest opinion about what he thinks is happening with the charts. Does that mean he's definitely right? Of course not. Does it mean we're guaranteed to fall way, way lower? Absolutely not. But the man is operating in complete good faith. And I find it fascinating that now, just a few days later, we're seeing even more analysts coming to similar conclusions. What seemed maybe a bit crazy at first is starting to look more reasonable to a growing number of chart experts. Let me share something from chart analyst Ethan Nason that perfectly captures the bigger picture here. And I want to be crystal clear about something. Even though we have analysts saying the pain might not be over, that doesn't mean the best days are behind us, even for this market cycle. The idea that XRP is going to go higher and eventually hit double-digit price action, I haven't seen any of the analysts I follow retract that prediction. Well, except for one. I've seen exactly one analyst express concern that we might actually be entering a bear market. But outside of that single outlier, none of them have changed their bullish long-term outlook. So here's what Ethan Nason posted. When a resistance level is tested more than 3 times and the price continues to accumulate above a major support, that resistance is destined to break sooner or later. Each test weakens the seller's defense. Supply gets absorbed, liquidity thins out, and the market builds pressure. Meanwhile, steady accumulation above strong support shows that buyers are quietly taking control. Energy is being stored for an explosive move. Eventually, the chart reaches a tipping point. What once held the price down becomes the launch pad. The breakout is no longer a question of if, but when. And this guy has been crystal clear that he still believes XRP is absolutely hitting double-digit price action this market cycle. ChartNerd, that's another analyst who still believes this completely. In fact, here's a post from ChartNerd from just this morning at 8:49 a.m., so about 6 hours ago. He laid out his Fibonacci extension targets for XRP holders. Number 1, 1.272 extension, which puts us at $8. Number 2, 1.414 extension, which gets us to $13. And number 3, 1.618 extension, which lands us at $27. He's saying that with recent developments, acquisitions, and what he calls vertical accumulation for 12 months, both fundamental and technical analysis point to all of these targets being real possibilities. This guy has been saying this for the longest time, and his conviction hasn't wavered one bit. And I absolutely love this. He replied to his own post and wrote, "None of this $10,000 per XRP rubbish. Pure data." Chef's kiss. That gets a golf clap from me right there. Hell yeah! I cannot stand those ridiculous $10,000 XRP posts. Thank you, ChartNerd, for keeping it real with actual data-driven analysis. And let me just be completely honest with you here. Those $10,000 XRP predictions are the stupidest thing you could possibly believe in the XRP community. I'm just gonna shoot straight with you. I'm sure somebody out there could surprise me and come up with something even more ridiculous, but that $10,000 nonsense is completely absurd. Unless we're talking about runaway inflation destroying the dollar. But when people throw around that $10,000 number, they're talking about it based on today's purchasing power. And let's all acknowledge that reality check right now. It's not happening, folks. There literally isn't enough money on the planet to bid XRP's price up to $10,000. The math just doesn't work. So here's somebody like ChartNerd who's actually grounded in reality. And frankly, XRP at $27 is exciting enough, especially if we're talking about this market cycle. Think about this for a second. XRP bottomed this cycle back in June 2022 at 28 cents. So if ChartNerd's $27 target hits, we're talking about XRP going from 28 cents to $27. That's absolutely incredible growth, and it's actually achievable. Now, I don't make price predictions myself. I'll be the first to admit I don't know exactly where we're headed. But I don't think any of ChartNerd's targets are crazy at all. $10,000? That's absolutely insane. Get out of here with that nonsense. But $8, $13, $27? That's perfectly reasonable speculation. But regardless of the exact numbers, the best is yet to come. I don't know if we'll see
More downside volatility first, but let me share something personal with you. I've been holding XRP for almost 8 years now, and I've never sold a single coin. Not one. And you know what? I want you to do a little homework assignment. Go look at the XRP chart, month by month, year by year. Look at every single up and down move. I've been through every single one of those roller coasters. My conviction has held strong, I've refused to sell, and I've been rewarded for it so far. XRP did hit that new all-time high of $3.65. But here's the thing. I held XRP when it was as low as 10 cents. Think about that. After holding it at the 2018 all-time high of $3.35, I watched it crash all the way down to 10 cents in March 2020. And you know what I did? I kept buying. I was down substantially, like really substantially, but I just kept adding to my position. I talked about it publicly as I was doing it. I was buying when everyone thought I was crazy. And was I ultimately rewarded? You bet. We hit $3.65, and my average buy price is 25 cents. Right now, with XRP at $2.54, I'm still doing pretty well. Look, crypto is just volatile.
That's the nature of the beast. I'm just one data point, one regular guy sharing his experience. But I'm telling you something I absolutely believe. The investors who get life-changing wealth from this asset class are the ones who buy exposure and then hold for long periods of time. If you don't have that conviction, if you can't go through whatever it takes, even if it means holding through multiple cycles, you're probably not going to get rich from crypto. But the opportunity to become wealthy? It's absolutely there. You just have to choose to do the right thing. The opportunity is sitting right in front of you, and it's up to you not to mess it up. It's up to you to avoid the common mistakes that derail most people. And I find that incredibly empowering. I'm just a regular dude. I'm not some finance guy with inside information. I'm just a regular Joe. And I know that's pretty much all of you listening too. I think that's an empowering message. Yes, you can do this. The opportunity is real, and it's available to regular people like us. We might be setting up for something really special here, folks. Stay strong, stay informed, and remember, the best opportunities often come disguised as temporary setbacks.